Hey there, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Talk Speaker to Me. My name is Rick Clemons, and I am the lead coach here at the Speaker Lab. And I'm here today to share with you something that's really important to me as a speaker in my own speaking brand, and something that should be important to you as a speaker as well: authenticity. And I have found the more authentic I am in every aspect of my business, from being on that stage, getting the standing ovations, to hey, how people see me when they walk into my website. I know it's kind of crazy to say when they walk into my website, but they do when they come and visit your website. In fact, authenticity is so important, even from the moment that you send those outbound emails to try to create relationships, when you're there pressing flesh at conferences and stuff. Being authentically who you are is what the whole game is about. So why is this important? I know it almost seems obvious, right? Because you want to be who you are. But here's the thing. If you show up on a stage differently than you present yourself, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. I hate to say it, and I'm not an advocate of like, hey, let's shoot something, right? But here's the thing. If you send one message online and then a whole other message when you're on stage of what your brand's about and who you are, it'd be kind of like me showing up differently than the way I truly show up. For example, my authentic self is very laid back. You can kind of see I've got rolled up sleeves here, kind of casual, wearing some jeans on underneath where you can't see the camera right now. That's actually how I like to show up on stage. I'm very much a blue jeans or a nice jeans guy. You're never going to see me in a suit and tie on stage. Rolled up sleeves on a long sleeve shirt that's untucked. That's my brand. That's my brand image. My photos on my site represent that. And that's me being authentically myself in my brand. But when it comes to that brand stuff, it's not just authenticity in the brand, it's how you do it on stage. So where I'd like to take you is through 3 simple steps of the way to check your balances about your authentic self. You ready to go there? I am. Number 1, be you every step of the way. From the moment you get on stage to have conversations with meeting planners, kind of covered all this before, like when you're having those interactions with the audience, when you're off the stage and now people are clamoring like, I want your autograph, I want your autograph. I hope that happens. That would be really cool, right? Maybe you're at a book signing after you've been on stage. Continue to be 100% you. Now, I will say this. You probably amp up your personality, hopefully on stage a little bit, but don't make it so much amped up on stage that when they come to the book signing, you don't feel like the same person. Be consistently you all the way through your brand. The second thing is, I don't ever want you to overthink what does it mean to be authentically yourself. Really do an assessment. My authentic self is, and yes, I'm saying write this down or type it down. I find writing down something actually can really ingrain who I am. Authentically who I am, I'm going to say it again, I'm very casual. Authentically who I am, I'm very bold. Authentically who I am is pushing the envelope because I want to move my audiences to some uncomfortable spaces, but not so much that they're like, I'm out, I'm walking out of this, even though I've had a few people do it because they didn't like what I was talking about. That's okay. But I know where my brand is. I'm really comfortable talking about the uncomfortable, which is something that I wanted to share with you here. Some people go, well, are you being vulnerable or are you being authentic? In my case, I do both. For instance, I talk about cheating on my wife on stage. That's a very vulnerable discussion to have. It's also something that I can get daggers starting to be thrown at me. I can get some ugly looks. I can feel the discomfort, but then I bring it back into why I brought that particular subject matter up so that people can see, okay, he kind of sounds like a jerk, but then, wow, he brought me to a space that really helped me connect. Because here's the thing. You want to balance your vulnerability and your authenticity to where you want to be just vulnerable enough. Yes, just vulnerable enough that it helps people connect. You want them connecting, and there's nothing that is going to be less disconnecting that's really going to help people disconnect from you is if that vulnerability comes off as, oh, they're just saying that, they're not real. Yes, I cheated on my wife. And it really isn't something I'm proud of. In fact, it's one of the biggest shame buckets that I carry around with me all the time. I'm saying that exactly the same way I would if I was sitting down having coffee with you. If you and I were out to dinner, I'm like, you said, what's one of the things that you're most ashamed of in your life, Rick? Hey, cheating on my wife. It wasn't pretty. I'm not going to go into all the details about that here on this conversation, but you see, I'm kind of saying it exactly the same way I would. My authentic self, my vulnerable self is willing to go there, and I'm willing to balance it out by this is important because the story I'm going to tell is like being authentic and vulnerable with yourself to make bigger decisions. Finally, the thing I want you to remember most about being authentic. When you're authentic, you connect. I'm going to say that one again. When you're authentic, you connect. I tell the stories that I tell because there's always something in that story that's about creating the connection. I was sitting in college, second year, in an organic chemistry class going, what in the heck am I doing here? It wasn't because I was like failing, even though I was. It wasn't because I didn't really want to get the degree in what I was going for, dietetics and hotel restaurant management. I was struggling because I didn't want to be at that college. It was a private church college and I was paying through the nose. Do you see what I'm telling you in that story? I'm starting to dig in. If you're a college student and you're starting to hear what I'm talking about, my authenticity and vulnerability of telling that story is going to lead to, and that was the moment, as painful as it felt to me, that I knew I needed to pick up the phone. Yes, I went to college back in the day where we actually like picked up the phone, like had to dial, went to the payphone to do this stuff, right? And I had to have a really honest conversation with my parents and say, I appreciate that you want me to be in college. I want to be here too, Mom and Dad, but not at this college. I'm not going to go in debt this way. If I'm going to go in debt, it's going to be somewhere else where I'd like to be at, somewhere closer to home, somewhere that I feel like I can manage the debt after the fact. And it wasn't an easy conversation. And some of you in this audience are going to have some conversations similar to that. Do you see my authenticity and my vulnerability is starting to help connect? When we are authentic, we connect, we're being ourselves. And honestly, I've never overthought that story. I'm telling it just like it happened. So I'm going to invite you as a speaker, because I'm talking speaker to you today. I'm going to invite you as a speaker to realize who you are in yourself and be yourself. What does it mean for you to be authentic? And as you do that, what are the connection points that if you're going to showcase and be vulnerable and do that with your audience, what are the connection points you're hoping to create? Because what I know to be true is when you are 100% unapologetically yourself and authentic in that way, you will jump through so many hoops of your own self-doubts. You will quiet that imposter syndrome, because guess what? You're just speaking from your truth. And the more you do that, and I'm going to take it back to where I started, the more that comes through on your website, in times that you're on a podcast, maybe you're on a morning show, wow, what we see is what we get with Rick. What we see is what we get with Susan. What we see is what we get with Tom. What we see is what we get with Eric and Jane and Cynthia and Tabitha and Michael and Monty, and the list goes on. When they see what they get with you, the more they're going to want you. So as you think through where you're going in your speaking business, make the big A, authenticity, a huge part, not only of being on stage and what you do for the audience, but in every aspect of you doing your business. So thanks for joining me today on this episode of Talk Speaker to Me. And I look forward to joining you again in future seasons of Talk Speaker to Me.